Stillwater Planning Commission meeting of August 6th will now come to order. It will be the process this evening to call for items on the agenda. The commission will hear briefly from staff first, then the applicant and/or their representative, then open the public hearing and hear from those in favor and/or in opposition to the request. Before you come to the podium, please clearly state your name and address for the record, and then before closing the public hearing, both staff, the applicant and/or their representative will be provided an opportunity to respond, to provide additional information and answer questions. After all interested parties have spoken, the public hearing will be closed and we will hear closing remarks and alternatives from staff. With that, we have nothing under general orders. So starting with the public hearing section of the agenda, the first item, item A, is for a short-term rental, STR 0169, and we'll hear from staff first.
All right. Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Diana Hood. I'm the Associate Planner presenting this item on behalf of the Planning Department. As stated, this request is for a license to operate a short-term rental at the property addressed as 3227 South Pioneer. Here's an area map of the subject property. It's on the south side of town near 32nd Street. As a reminder, the Planning Commission is the hearing body for short-term rentals. The hearing is to be held similar to a specific use permit, except there is no staff report or presentation. As a reminder, if there is any discussion about private covenants or restrictions, the city does not have, the city cannot enforce private restrictions, but can give weight to them as part of the deliberative process. Are there any questions for staff?
I don't see any. Thank you, Diana. So at this time, we would ask if the applicant is present and would like to come give a few words, kind of tell us a little bit about the plans for the property.
My name is Shannon Blyle, and I live at the property 3227 South Pioneer Street. I applied for the short-term rental permit in order to rent my house for, I guess short-term is the wrong word for it, a mid-term rental to contract nurses and over the summer employees, maybe from OSU, things like that. I'm not interested in a quick turnover because I don't want to do the cleaning, but I own another property in Cushing, so I thought, well, my kids are gone for the summer. I'd like to have that opportunity, but I wanted to do it legally and be licensed and just let my neighbors know and everybody know what my plans were. This past summer, just for 1 month, I stayed in Cushing for a month, and I had a couple. They were just staying in my house, not for rent, to see how it goes, and it didn't go very well. They let my dog run loose and made a big mess in my house. So my project next summer is to have it ready, though, to find a contract nurse. I work in the hospital industry. So to find somebody that has like a 13-week contract with one of the hospitals locally that's looking for a nicer place to stay. Do you have any questions for me?
So will you be living there as well, or will you be living in Cushing?
I would be living in Cushing at the time that it's rented, unless I found like students. If students wanted to rent, and I did buy the room for the summer only, then I would stay living there. But I probably would only rent to students that I know.
I'm sorry, I was a little confused about the 1 month test you did.
So I had a couple that was just a newlywed couple that hadn't found a place to live together yet, and they both still had contracts in student housing separately. And I invited them to come. They had a trailer. They brought their trailer and parked it beside my house. I have a trailer parking with hookups and everything. They parked it there, but then they stayed in my house and took care of my pets while I went to Cushing to do some renovations on my rental house there.
Oh, so they stayed in this property?
They stayed in this property,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've had Airbnbs in the past. I've had 3 rental houses in the past. So I'm not new to landlord laws. I'm not new to vetting tenants. I do background checks. I'm very careful with who I rent to. And I wasn't aware of any public or private covenants or restrictions on this property. I just knew that I needed a license to do this.
So in the nursing industry, that's a common thing, a 13-week contract?
Very common, especially after COVID when nurses all want to be travelers. There's a lot more money in travel nursing. Yeah.
I suspect.
So in one of the objection letters, they referenced the short-term renter living in an RV. So that sounds like that was this past summer when you had people just staying at your house. They had their RV parked there as well.
And there was no money exchange, so they weren't technically renters, but I did tell my neighbors, hey, this is what's happening.
Right,
and
they were just staying.
Yeah, and keep an eye on it. Please call me if there's any problems, because I'm just in Cushing.
And then so moving forward, another part of their complaint was them watching your dog, and it sounds like that didn't go well.
Yeah.
Would that not be the case moving
No, I would take
forward?
my
You
dog
would
with
take
me
your
next
dog
time.
with you to
Yes.
Cushing? Okay.
Yeah, I would not leave my pets for the whole summer.
With the 13-week or however long short-term renter, what type of rules and regulations would you have on them? Are you going to be using Airbnb or
So
something?
I'm hopeful to find a nurse that I work with or that works with a friend of mine, just word of mouth, and then I would just do a contract with them. So a lease agreement contract
Okay.
with just typical standard lease agreement regulations.
So you would not be listing this on Airbnb or anything like that?
I had considered that idea, but no, I'm not interested in cleaning it after Airbnb guests. Not at all.
If I may, short-term rental licenses are for renting up to 30 consecutive days. It's not for a longer-term rental period. So if she
Okay.
had
So
a
that's for
13-week leasee that's under a contract, this would not apply.
Okay, cool.
Just to
I
clarify
wasn't aware of that, but yeah, medium term is really what I'm looking for. But short term definitely was my first thought was I'll put whoever I can find in there. But then I thought more about it, and I don't want somebody in my house coming and going anyway. Like multiple people coming and going, because those tend to be partiers or it's just a lot more work.
If we didn't approve this, you could still do what you wanted to do with the 13-week rentals, right?
Sure, the medium term.
Sounds like.
But if somebody was coming for a 30-day or less, I don't know how that works, but
She would need this if they were to be 30 days or less
Right.
consecutive. If she's going to do longer than that, it
Mhm.
would take it out of the purview of the short-term rental.
yeah,
So I
I
guess-
would like it just to have it to be compliant with my business too.
Yeah. So you just want the flexibility of being able to do less than 30 days in case?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I'm not new to the landlord field whatsoever.
So you did mention that you've had previous short-term rentals.
Yes.
Was that in Stillwater?
No, it was out of state.
Okay.
We moved here in 2015.
Okay. And you mentioned the kind of the upkeep.
Yes.
After that, did you have a service doing that for you
I
previously?
had a property manager. So
Okay.
it was completely, it was
More
while
of a
we lived here.
self-contained kind
Yep.
of.
It was while we lived here, and it was a kind of a duplex.
Okay.
And the property manager lived in one side and then rented the other side.
Gotcha.
But we had no problems. It went well.
Okay. So yeah, so it sounds like you do have good experience on the management end of it. You kind of know
Mhm.
what you do want to do, what you don't want to do.
Correct.
Okay. So I know some of the things that we ask people that are looking for more the true short term, because it is a university town and there's a big draw for certain events throughout the athletic seasons. That we often will have neighbors that are looking for things as no local addresses could do a short-term weekend rental. Looking for kind of a minimum age of renter. Some of these different kinds of things, how many cars could park in the drive. So it sounds to me like you kind of have a plan that's a little different than that, but you want to have that mechanism in place. Would you be looking at any of those types of rules?
Restrictions? Yes, definitely. I have a minimum credit score on my background check. So it's a full background check, and if they don't pass it, they don't pass it. I'm picky about my renters.
Okay.
So if you have an under 680 credit score, it automatically rejects your application, and I wouldn't even see it.
Okay. Okay.
Ideally, you're looking for 4 renters. I mean, in an ideal situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, are your neighbors aware that your plan is different than a typical short-term rental?
I've talked to some of them a little bit. Yeah,
Do they have a response, like just
no response.
no
really,
response?
just concerned. Nobody wants our neighborhood degraded at all. And I've got 6 of those kids that run around the neighborhood. So me, above all people, don't want our neighborhood property values decreasing or any sort of unsafe situation in my neighborhood. I definitely value the safety of my neighborhood.
I don't think we have any other questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So at this time, I would ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this request. Seeing none, I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak in opposition to this request to please come forward. Sure, yeah, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Debbie Shawneke. I live at 3003 West 33rd, so I'm just one house away from hers. My concern is someone going to be taking care of the yard and keeping that up on the outside? Because sometimes that's a concern in a neighborhood if you want your neighborhood to look lived in. And so I'd want to know how that's going to be handled.
Okay, and we'll have an opportunity here in just a little bit to have her come back and talk to that. Are there any other concerns that you would have other than the yard?
Just what would be the process we would follow if there was if we have any
Of
concerns?
complaints? Okay. All right.
So that's it. Thank
All right,
you.
thank you. I'd ask if there's anyone else in the audience. Yes, please come forward.
My name is John Straw. I live at 3011 West 33rd Avenue. I guess part of my concern is, as a neighborhood that's made up of single-family homes and having people that would be coming in every 13 weeks, from what I'm hearing this evening, we have no way of really knowing who's coming into our neighborhood. The applicant has stated herself that even though she's concerned about the safety of the neighborhood, she would be living in Cushing during that time with her 6 children, I assume would go with her. There are other children in the neighborhood, other families with children, so I do have a concern about the safety aspect of everything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience this evening that would like to speak in opposition of this item? Seeing none, we'd give the opportunity for the applicant to come back and address the questions that have been raised.
So first for the yard upkeep, that was a great question, Debbie. I hadn't thought of it. I would just include it in my lease,
Okay.
that the yard needs to be maintained as part of the lease agreement. For the complaint process, text me. All my neighbors have my number. I'm responsive and I'm 19 miles away. And then for the safety concern about who would be coming and going, I think a background check is the best that I could do. But we're all concerned about when a house sells next to us, who's going to move in. We're all concerned about that, especially if you have kids. There's no way to control that other than buying that house yourself, and then you can control it. So I think for safety concerns, I would love complaints. If there was somebody that moved in that was sketchy or somebody knew something about that person, I would love a complaint because I would get them out of there fast. But I don't think that you can control the safety of who moves into your next door neighbor's house, really.
Okay, I think that answers the questions that have been asked. Okay. All right, so And at this time, we'll close the public hearing. And Diane, I do have a question, and I don't know necessarily if it's you or if it's our city attorney. I know there's also a process through the city if a complaint needs to be made. Could one of you explain that process?
I'm gonna take that one, Diana. It could be done through code enforcement, such as a lawn issue or trash issue. Other complaints, it could also go through the PD or the city clerk's office as well.
Yeah. And then once there's a record of whatever issue there is, if it's consistent enough of an issue, then there is the option for reevaluating and potentially revoking the license if it's a consistent issue.
Thank you both. I knew we had a process. I just wasn't certain I could speak about all the details. So thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so Diana, can you tell us what our alternatives are?
Of
Our
course.
options?
Your options for this evening are to approve the request, defer for additional discussion, or deny the request.
Thank you. Commissioners, is there anyone thinking about a motion or discussion?
I'd make a motion to approve the request as, I guess approve the
Yep.
request. So.
Yep.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We shall now vote. Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is to receive public comment regarding a request from Series 7 of Go Forth Murray Properties LLC for a map amendment. We shall hear from staff.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Jacqueline Porter, City Planner, presenting this map amendment request to rezone the property address as 320 South Walnut Street from small lot single family to two-family multifamily, which is RTM, for future residential use. The subject property is located near the intersection of South Walnut Street and West 4th Avenue. The Westwood overlay, you'll see in the next slide, is located to the west, and then you can't see it here either, but to the northeast is Tower Park. Oh, no, I lied. Street's next. Here's a street view looking west towards the subject property off of Walnut. Okay, here. The current zoning of the subject property is small lot single family with similar zoning to the north, south, and west, with multifamily intermediate to the east. The Westwood overlay is located to the west of the subject property. RTM is located in the vicinity near the southeast corner of South Walnut and West 4th. Further to the east of South Walnut Street are various high-density residential zonings. The future land use map was adopted with the 2030 comprehensive plan, which projected the desired use in the area at the time of the adoption of the plan. It projected the uses in the area to be low-density residential on the west side of South Walnut Street and high-density on the east side of South Walnut Street. Aaron Ferguson with Bancroft Design is here on behalf of the property owner. Do you have any questions for staff?
I don't have a question, I've got a comment. These maps now,
Yes.
not only do I think they're of low aesthetic value, but informational value is worthless to me. Maybe the other commissioners are quite fine with that, and if so, I'll just continue. I hate to use the word Google because I know they're a monopoly, but Google the map and really find out more about the location.
What additional information would you like to?
Well, a real map.
I think what would be helpful for me would be the zoning designations are not showing up on this print. So while we've got different color hatch on there, it doesn't show us what would be RTM or RSS. And then I think what was helpful in your presentation is you did make note of where the Westwood overlay is, and that's on this, but it's not called out. So I think that would probably provide more information for us as we're looking at these.
And the street designation is difficult to read.
Okay.
At least it is for me.
Yep.
One question I do have, Jacqueline, it looks like the piece that's shaded, it has a single address, but is that actually two lots that structure is on? That is, is it 320, is that actually two lots?
It is two lots of the original plat that
The
it was
original
on.
plat,
Yep.
okay. Any other questions?
3. Yeah, it could be 3.
Four lots from the original plat?
22 to 25.
Okay, thank you.
I'm good at math over here.
I was just looking graphically, so it looks
Yep,
like
I was
typically.
visually. I didn't even think about looking at the legal.
Yeah.
Same as those.
All right.
So all the current lots along Walnut on that side of the street are half the size of this one, roughly,
Yeah,
correct?
roughly.
Okay.
Mhm. All right. Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Jacqueline. So at this time, we'd give the applicant an opportunity to come up and give us a little more information.
Hello, Aaron Ferguson with Bancroft Design at 923 South Lowry. Right now, there's no specific use for the property. It's just for future residential development. And as was said, there is similar zoning along the east side of the street. There is RMI across the street, which is even a step higher in the residential zoning than what we're requesting. And there is RTM located on the southeast corner, I believe, at Walnut and 3rd or 4th Street, whichever one it is. Other than that, I don't have any other information right now to give you. So is there any questions?
So the map amendment rezone that's being proposed here would bring the property into more compatibility with the higher density zoning that's to its east?
So to the east is RMI,
Right.
and we're requesting RTM, which is a step below
Above.
density than RMI.
But it is increasing the density.
It
of
is
that
increasing the
one,
density, yes.
So currently, there's no intention to either add to or build a new house there at any point or to sell? This is just for
Yeah,
future potential?
Our client just came and asked us to push the map amendment process, and so I don't know of any specific plan for it that I can tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I will say that I believe the client does own other properties to the northeast, along probably 3rd Street. I think they're still single-family homes or possibly duplexes. So I would guess something similar to that.
Okay.
The single-family homes, owner occupied or are they rental?
I would assume rental.
I take this route to and from work most days, so my impression is I think this is a lot of rental. It's very quiet there in the summer months, and it's more active during the school year. Any other questions?
Yeah, it's just a question. If you go from RSS to RTM, but you decide later that you want a single-family home, do you have to come back and go?
Correct.
Okay. I didn't know if there was, it covers.
No, you're
Okay.
correct.
So that brings another question then. If there's not a plan in place to replace the single-family unit that's there, then by making this zoning change, it would no longer be compliant? Question mark?
It would be compliant. It would be the word I'm looking for.
Non-conforming?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
What are the ramifications of non-conforming?
I'm not sure what you mean ramifications.
Jackie?
Like, is there,
Yeah,
do
is
you think of an
there-
issue?
Is there any criteria?
So the only thing is it's going to be the use, and it's going to be legal non-conforming at that point. So we have it if that structure is vacant for over, I believe it's like 90 days, then it has to be compliant whenever it comes back. But it's kind of hard to enforce because we don't know. We don't have anybody just sitting there watching a house like, oh yes, it's been vacant. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
but there's not a whole lot we can do with this case. It's kind of similar with our other one that we had recently.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, if the house is taken down, they couldn't put a single family back up, right?
Okay.
I think we'll
Yep.
understand
Okay.
that. Yes, if they tear down the single family home, it wouldn't be able to go back up as a single family home to be compliant with the zoning. Unless they came back for a zoning change again.
Okay, at this time, I would ask if there's anyone in the audience this evening that would like to speak in favor of this item to please come forward. Seeing none, I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience this evening that would like to speak in opposition of this item.
Good evening. William Stockel, 321 South Orchard. It's the adjacent property to the west of the plot we're talking about. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily opposed to it. It's just my ignorance in the zoning, and that's what I was asking about. You know, so it's a single-family home right now. So if they raise that and then put in like a duplex, is there like can it not go higher than 2 floors? Or, you know, I don't want an apartment complex, which might be zoned differently anyway, in my backyard. And so, you know, saying there's no plan, that doesn't help me out. But what are the limitations and what are the, you know, I don't,
Jackie, did you show him the chart? Yeah. Okay.
so this doesn't really address the structure height is 35 feet,
Yeah.
which is the same as a single family home. Okay. And there wouldn't be necessarily, like, again, zoning, there wouldn't be, like, the parking wouldn't be on right up to my property line. That would still have to be on the street side, or,
Well, so if you look on that table, if you look down a little bit further, there's like the
and I
minimum.
apologize, I mean, I just got.
No,
it,
no,
so
no,
yeah,
absolutely,
so-
no.
Go ahead.
We'll just kind of walk through it. So like that minimum front yard, we'll show you like how far it needs to be. And then this is not a corner lot. So if you looked at the minimum side yard and the minimum rear yard, so I think the rear yard there would be 20 feet.
Okay.
It actually seems like the RTM is a little more restrictive because the max lot coverage is 40%, whereas RSS is no max limit.
Correct.
And then I guess would there be, so RSM is multifamily home, is there a limit to, does that mean 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever the lot size can accommodate, I guess, or?
So I'll try this, and Jackie, correct me if I go astray. So looking over here at the comparison chart, if you look under the RTM, just go down to the bottom of that column, when it talks about the maximum gross density of 20 units per acre. I believe this is 1/3 of an acre. Is that what I read correctly? So someone who does math better than me. 20 acres.
Six-ish.
So around 6-ish units could go
Okay, I
in.
see what, yeah, okay.
Right. Yeah, I know, it's, and if you're not used to looking at this, it's a little disconcerting, and you haven't seen it until just a few moments ago.
And again, not familiar with the zoning. I'm just, it's in my backyard. So
sure,
that's why
of
I'm
course.
here. And
I would-
like I said, I'm not opposed, but I
Right.
wasn't going to give a,
Right. I
approval.
think one of the things that I looked at when I saw this is that I guess the required for parking lots only. Jackie, can a parking lot go in, or is this where we're looking at landscaping is required if there was a parking lot only? So if it was a development, if there was a structure, there's not a landscaping requirement, but a parking lot could go in, but it would require some landscaping. Is that correct? Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, in this district, parking lots, if it's just parking lots, would require that. And if there is a situation where they put the parking in the back, we also request that there be at least 2 foot from adjacent properties so that they can put a berm or something there.
Okay.
so if I follow correctly, they can not even build a structure and tear it down and just have a parking lot.
Lot.
I guess I would be opposed to that. If I need to go on record, or, I mean, it just seems out of place for the neighborhood and,
Correct.
just a-
Yeah, and I don't, if you looked at, if your property butts up to this, I know you're aware that in the block just south, there happens to be a parking lot. So it would be the orange here, there's a parking lot there.
South of 4th Street.
South of 4th Street, right.
Yeah, because you get more into some
Right,
apartment
there's-
complexes there, so.
Right, there's some multi-units
Yeah,
there. And
which
that-
fits a little bit, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go
interrupt.
ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it fits a little bit more into, but as you approach upon the Westwood overlay, now I mean, I know, just trying to keep the housing, not a parking lot, so.
Right, right. Agreed.
Okay.
Yes. But that one, I think, was listed as, it was a PUD. So that one is actually zoned RSS, which is what all of the rest of this is in this block. But it was a PUD, so it was a planned urban development that was specifically brought before the Planning Commission to be a parking lot in there, and had a public hearing similar to this at that time.
Okay. And again, I don't know, can you approve of zoning with an exception, like
No,
approve
if
RSM?
if it's allowed by right, there's nothing that we can do. That's
RSM.
really what this body is here to say, are all the approved uses by right appropriate
Sure.
for this particular piece of property and what's around it.
Okay.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience this evening that would like to speak in opposition of this item? Okay. Seeing none, I would, Aaron, you have the opportunity to come back, but I have a feeling I know what you're going to say. You don't have any information from the applicant, from the owner.
No, I don't. I know that he intends to build something residential, so I have no reason to believe that it will be just a parking lot, because he doesn't have anything to use a parking lot for. The parking lot that is farther south is for a sorority, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So he would have no use to just put a single parking lot there. So it's intended to use for some sort of residential structure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have one more question.
Do you know the dimensions of the lot? I mean, I know the acreage, but I don't know the...
I don't know the full dimensions. I believe it's actually 3 lots, but I don't have the full dimensions on me right now.
So if it was 4 lots from the original plat, are they 25 wide or 15? I'm not sure. It's hard for me to tell at this scale.
I just did the math, and it looks like it's really, really close on the
Minimum.
lot width and depth.
Right.
But I could be off.
I noticed that as well. So if they were 25 feet, you'd be right at the width of 100 feet because there's 4 of them. If they are 15, then we would be under. I just don't know.
Well, actually, the minimum lot size, if it's .31 acres, it's below that, 20,000 square feet. Like 13,000 or something. Yeah, it's 13,500 square feet at .31. So I don't know if there's an exception to that or if that's what it has to be, but it sounds like we didn't meet the requirement.
Jackie, can you speak to that? Okay.
Okay. So what we may do,
She's calculating.
yeah, let her calculate it out.
No.
31 acres to convert to square feet, 13,503.
Jackie, I know you're still looking some stuff up. I think what I'm looking at on this is just looking at the aerial and the width of both Walnut and Fourth. I know Walnut is a little bit wider than most typical collector streets, but Fourth is close to a collector. So are we looking at about 25 feet wide for
Yes,
Fourth?
so I just measured it on our GIS. It is actually 100 by 136 is the lot size.
So it's roughly 13,000 square feet.
Yes, yeah. Which, again, our code doesn't help when the square footage is wrong.
So while I think this is a bit of a quandary here. I don't know if I'm missing something. So if we're looking at the minimum lot width and depth, and it's just at that, if it's 100 by 136. So while we're just getting into those minimum width and depth, it doesn't meet the minimum lot size. Is that correct?
Correct. So if y'all recall the property just south of the Girl Scouts that came in June that we did, it was the same situation. For whatever reason, our code has the square footage coverage incorrect. So it doesn't meet the minimum lot widths and.
Is it incorrect, or is it actually saying you can be 100 foot wide, but you need to be deeper than 130 to get 20,000 square foot gross, and or you could be 130 feet deep and you can be wider than 100 to get the 20,000 square feet.
Yes.
So I think that would be more my question. On that, I mean, it seems to me that this is a fairly small lot to put in a multi-unit beyond a duplex on it, and to provide for off-street parking. So I think, while I think that this location is a good place for some step-down zoning, I'm a little uneasy with just doing just the one lot because of the size of it. So it's a bit of a quandary for me.
I would feel better about making an exception if I knew what was going on there, as opposed to,
But that's actually not what is supposed to be considered. It's considered whether this piece of property
fits
the zoning, because the zoning could go on 10, 20 years from now, and they can change the use if it fits the zoning. Does that make sense?
yes. Thank you.
I mean, I think as Commissioner Prather pointed out, the coverage, the maximum lot coverage is 40%. So trying to look at, you've got 13,000 square feet, so 40% of that, and it could go up to 35 feet. So you're just looking at the footprint of the lot coverage.
5,400.
So yeah, 5,400 square feet of lot coverage. Yeah.
There's a question in the audience. I don't know if you want to address it or not.
Question in the audience.
There's someone raising their hand. I'm not sure why.
It would be
Okay.
73 feet square.
Okay, you have a question from the audience? Yes?
When you guys are talking about lot size, are we talking about, because there is 2 lots for this one property, isn't it? On address?
Actually, it's 4 lots of the original plat, so all the other addresses along Walnut in that block are 2 lots. So this is actually twice as big as every other lot on that side of Walnut.
Are you guys doing your minimum requirements, or are we combining all 4 lots?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Have to be redesignated one single lot?
It has, I want to say it has one address, but it actually has multiple.
Has one address, but the legal description has 4 lots. But one address, physical address. Is my
One
understanding.
physical address, but it's 4 lots.
And that's common.
It's
Right, because my property is 2 lots.
Correct.
And I bought it as 2 lots, but I can split it off if I wanted to. And that's what I'm just wondering.
right.
The
So
reason-
yeah. So the reason that this one could actually, if it goes to RTM, it can't be split because it's going to have to be the 100 feet minimum wide, which it just meets. So your lot, if you're an RSS zone, which butts up to this on the other side, the 50 feet wide is the minimum width. So that's why the original township was done, and they were 25 feet, and they've been, I don't know how I want to say, legally, the description follows that original platting.
Yes.
But because of our zoning requirements, it takes 2 lots to be one legal conforming lot. Thank you.
Played each other tonight.
Yeah, if that property were square, it would be 74 foot per side max to fit on there at the 40% limit. It's not very big.
So yeah, I think the question I have is, and this may be left up to our interpretation, and so it's a question for our legal representative here. The 20,000 square feet, I'm thinking that is probably not necessarily an error.
I believe that's a minimum requirement.
Yeah, so that's the minimum requirement, which this doesn't meet because we're at 13
Well, it does say minimum lot.
size.
Yeah.
Yeah. So while I think that this is a good location for step-down zoning, going from the RMI and buffered RSS behind it and building a multi-unit structure, residential seems to make sense here. The lot size doesn't meet the minimum requirements, so I would not feel good about making that judgment on this particular lot because it doesn't meet the minimum requirement.
Have we closed the public hearings? So that,
Yeah.
Yeah, we
that's
did.
close.
okay. Just want to make sure. I didn't know that part. Okay.
Yep. So, Chair will extend privilege and make a motion to deny this application based on the minimum lot size is not met.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. We shall now vote. Motion passes 5-0. Yes. Yeah. Motion to deny passes. Okay. Next item on the agenda is meeting summary for review and possible action. We have, the first item is the meeting summary from July 9th. And I know, I'm going to again ask our legal advisor.
You're making me work since I was gone.
I know. I'm seeing we missed you.
Yeah.
Can you feel like we've missed you?
Beloved.
If there are, would you prefer this make two motions for both of these?
Yes, it's
Okay.
usually the best.
Perfect. Does anyone have any additions or corrections to the minutes from July 9th? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve minutes from July 9th as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We shall now vote. Motion passes 5-0. The minutes are approved as submitted. Do I hear, okay, the next item would be the meeting summary of July 16th, and I had one typo correction that I had passed on. And that was on page 3 of 4, just above roll call. There was a misspelling on my name. So they're going to get that corrected? It is correct. Okay.
Sheriff Felipa.
Perfect. Is there anything else?
Motion to approve minutes from July 16th as presented.
With the correction.
With the corrections stated.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We shall now vote. Motion passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is miscellaneous items from staff, planning commissioners, or the city attorney for discussion and possible action. I believe we have something from the city attorney's office.
I do have an announcement. The agenda planner, we have set October 28th, that's a Monday, to discuss short-term rentals with city council. The actual format of that meeting is still being discussed, but we'll keep you informed. But you might want to put on your calendar if you want to attend October 28th.
I had a comment about that.
Oh, comment? I thought you said a conflict, sorry.
No, sorry. I don't know about that yet, but, we've had a lot of, I think I've been doing this 2-3 years, something like that. And so we've had a lot of short-term rentals come up.
Mm-hmm.
And people typically have the same concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any way to go back and see if we've actually had any filed complaints?
Oh, we have.
Okay.
We have pulled all the information.
Oh,
We
good,
actually
good.
have a presentation we are making.
Fantastic.
We have quite the notebook ready of any complaint that was made, what happened with that complaint, was it founded, unfounded, what happened after
Okay.
that. We will also have maps to show where all short-term rentals are located.
Wow.
Jackie's office needs to take credit for all the hard work they have done. We have researched other cities' ordinances, proposed some changes to our ordinance, and those will all be discussed and take direction from council.
Okay. What day was that again?
October 28th, it's a Monday. The actual format, exact time, all that has not been set. It'll be evening.
Fantastic. Right. So typically we have the next meeting listed. I didn't see it on the agenda.
Next meeting is August 20th.
Okay, so the next meeting of the Planning Commission will be August 20th. And the last item is adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We shall now vote. Motion passes 5-0. We're now adjourned.